Ghana Global Television Network.
Sudan's military rulers and the opposition coalition ink constitutional declaration. Mogadishu mayor accorded state burial after succumbing to injuries sustained after suicide attack. And 9 people killed and 26 wounded in a shooting in Ohio, second mass shooting in the U.S. in less than 24 hours. Hello everyone, welcome to Africa Live on CGTN with me, Beatrice Marshall in Nairobi. Also coming up on the program, Iran seizes a foreign oil tanker in the Gulf, smuggling fuel to some Arab states. And we begin in Sudan, where the military rulers and main opposition leaders have placed their initials on a constitutional declaration. Both parties have agreed on how to form a 3-year transitional government on the road to civilian rule. This comes after a series of talks that followed the overthrow of longtime leader Omar al-Bashir in April. The military council and opposition coalition are expected to sign the final agreement on August the 17th. A formal ceremony will be held in Sudan's capital, Khartoum. A number of foreign leaders are set to attend the event. While with the military rulers and main opposition leaders having placed their initials on a constitutional declaration, CGTN's Yasser Hakim looks at the fate of the former ruling party and political powers loyal to former President Omar al-Bashir in the new political equation.
The news of the agreement on a constitutional declaration has led to wild celebrations in Sudan. A power-sharing body of 5 generals and 6 civilians will oversee a transitional period, including a new government and constitution. The deal has been signed by the military council and opposition forces, but political groups and parties loyal to former President Omar al-Bashir have not been involved.
The Islamists and the National Congress were the strongest supporters of al-Bashir. They were not involved in any of the ongoing negotiations. The opposition and the military council have ignored them in any talks. The Islamists and the National Congress have also lost most of their popularity and public support in the streets because of their close relationship and corruption with the former president.
While some leaders at al-Bashir's National Congress have tried in vain to join the power-sharing deal, others have pushed to sabotage the peace talks.
After failing to break up the peace efforts, the National Congress and Islamists are trying to rebuild their presence by establishing new parties and using unknown personalities as a facade. They would claim they are modern political parties who are pro-civilian and democratic rule. But once they gain popularity, they will force their extremist ideologies, just like they tried in Egypt and other Arab countries. The public must have awareness to avoid such a scenario.
Meanwhile, according to the power-sharing agreement, the transitional period is about 3 years. While the Sudan National Congress has been cast aside politically, many of its leaders, including former President Omar al-Bashir, are now on trial for corruption and abuse of power. Yasser Hakim for CGTN, Cairo.
Mogadishu has laid to rest its mayor who succumbed to his injuries from a suicide attack last week. Abdi Rahman Omar Osman died on Thursday while undergoing treatment at a hospital in the state of Qatar. CGTN's Abdulaziz Bilo has the story from Mogadishu.
The body of the late mayor was flown to Mogadishu on Sunday, just 3 days after he succumbed to injuries sustained in a suicide blast at his offices last month. President Mohamed Abdullahi Farmajo led the nation in a state funeral accorded for Abdurrahman Omar Osman, who served as the mayor of Mogadishu for the past 1.5 years. His immediate family members were also in attendance as the city finally laid to rest its beloved leader who paid the ultimate price in his efforts to return stability and rule of law to Mogadishu.
The late mayor played an important role in the realization of a stable city and nation over the years. He paid the ultimate sacrifice in the realization of his vision for this city. We all bear witness to his struggle. We mourn the loss of a great man. May he rest in peace.
The late mayor was a good person and died a martyr. May God grant him eternal paradise. He has left big shoes for us to fill, and we promise to fulfill his ambitions and expectations for Mogadishu.
The president picked Osman in January 2018 to become the governor of the Benazir region and the mayor of Mogadishu, a prestigious title that made him one of the most powerful men in the country. Before his appointment as mayor, Osman served as the country's information minister in Prime Minister Hassan Ali Khaire's cabinet. In 2009, Osman returned to Mogadishu after living in London for close to 2 decades, having served as a local councillor in the United Kingdom. Since then, the late mayor served in various posts including key ministries such as finance. He also served as a government spokesperson and a top advisor to past and present administrations. Militant group Al-Shabaab claimed responsibility for the attack on the local government headquarters on July 24th that also killed 12 other top local government officials. Investigators now say that a female suicide bomber carried out the attack, deliberately targeting a security gathering chaired by the city mayor. Authorities have heightened security in most government installations as investigations as to how Al-Shabaab infiltrated the highly secured local government offices and staged such a deadly attack continues. Abdul Aziz Bilo, CGTN, Mogadishu, Somalia.
Let's head to the U.S., where at least 9 people were killed, including the suspected assailant, and 27 others wounded in a popular nightclub district of downtown Dayton in Ohio. It is the second mass shooting in the country in less than 24 hours. The mayor of Dayton held a press conference after the incident. Here's what she said.
The gun that the shooter had was a .223 caliber high-capacity magazine. He had additional magazines, and he was wearing body armor. Look, I think the police and our first responders have done an amazing job. Clearly, the question has to be raised: why does Dayton have to be the 250th mass shooting in America? 250. I mean, that's really the question.
Dayton police officers who were on routine patrol nearby intervened. They shot and killed the gunman, but he has not yet been identified. FBI agents were assisting in the investigation, and wounded victims have been sent to the local hospital for treatment. A U.S. attorney says the deadly El Paso shooting is being treated as domestic terrorism. Investigations are still ongoing as authorities study an online manifesto linked to the suspect. 21-year-old Patrick Crusius from Allen, Texas, was taken into custody after the rampage left 20 dead and 26 wounded. He opened fire at a busy Walmart store in the city of El Paso at around 10 a.m. local time. The state governor is calling it one of the deadliest days in Texas history. Well, hours after the 2 shootings in the U.S., hundreds gathered at the White House to protest the government's inaction on gun control. Most of the demonstrators were members of the activist group Moms Demand Action. They held up signs and chanted slogans like "No More Silence" and "Gun Violence," despite citizens' call for action. The government has been reluctant to combat gun violence. According to statistics, 17 mass shootings have been recorded since 2000, while only 10 were recorded between 1949 and 2000. The deadliest shooting occurred in 2017 when 58 people were killed in Las Vegas. Iran says an oil tanker seized by its elite forces in the Gulf for smuggling fuel was an Iraqi ship. That's according to the official IRNA news agency. On Sunday, Iranian media reported that the Revolutionary Guards Corps had seized a foreign oil tanker in the Gulf that was smuggling fuel to some Arab states. It added that 7 sailors on board the tanker had been detained. Officials say the ship carried 700,000 liters of fuel. Last month, Iran seized a British tanker in the Straits of Hormuz for alleged marine violations and allowed a second to proceed after issuing a warning. Tensions have spiked between Iran and the West after British forces captured an Iranian oil tanker near Gibraltar last month, accused of violating sanctions on Iran. In Hong Kong, video footage has surfaced of protesters throwing rocks and breaking the windows of a police station. Masked rioters gathered in front of the station in the Seung Kwan O district, cheering each time a rock smashed a window. This comes a day after demonstrators tore down the Chinese national flag and threw it into the sea. Both Beijing and Hong Kong authorities have condemned the actions. The Hong Kong and Macau Affairs Office of the State Council says the behavior has gone far beyond freedom of expression. It also voiced support for the Hong Kong authorities to bring two criminals to justice. You're watching Africa Live. Coming up on the program, we'll tell you how one project in Kenya is educating people about harm reduction for people who use drugs. And we see how a young Ivorian is turning mobile phones into art objects.
You're watching breaking news on CGTN.
Welcome to the world today on CGTN.
For a look at some economic data out of the country, the country's foreign currency reserves.
With a dedicated and diverse team of anchors, CGTN now brings Africa to the palm of your hand.
I'm Penina Karibe in the heart of Nairobi, which is bustling.
From everyday heroes to the continent's most powerful figures, we bring their voices to you.
We haven't changed.
And this is something most of us are very excited about.
We bring you news that's changing perspectives.
I'm reporting from Nairobi City Center.
News that brings Africa to the world. CGTN. See the difference. Africa Live. Find your voice.
The recent UNAIDS report indicating mixed results in the campaigns to reduce HIV infection among key populations. In Kenya, the campaign to support key populations varies depending on the subgroup. For intravenous drug users, the efforts in place through the harm reductions program, generating controversial perspectives, stands as the only option to wean users of narcotics in Kenya's 3 major cities. Barry Oro brings us that report.
The United Nations is calling for renewed efforts that would see a decline in HIV infection among key population groups. For recovering heroin addicts, exposure to infection is a daily threat, which is broadened by lifestyle habits.
It is not possible to avoid using the drug. Without a little heroin to start the day, it is impossible to do anything because you start to experience serious withdrawal symptoms. So you always have to go back and use a little to get yourself back to normal.
Addiction. The drive to get one more fix has such a pull, and for addicts, nothing is too far or too extreme.
I was with some friends of mine when we stole 100,000 from a certain lady, and I was the one who was left behind after the crime. I was charged with the crime in court and I went to jail.
I have had to do a lot to manage this habit. I even got involved in crime. I have robbed and even conned people so as to be able to sustain this habit.
However, there is hope. The Wellness Center at the Jaramogi Oginga Odinga Hospital administers methadone as a replacement drug to addicts in the early steps of recovery to prevent the onset of withdrawal symptoms. Members enrolled to the project go through thorough screening and are accompanied to the site for a daily dose by a peer educator from the LVCT site in Manyata, Kisumu.
In Kisumu, we have a number of drug users who are injecting, but majority also are smoking. But those who are injecting are influencing those who are smoking to graduating into injecting.
According to Liverpool VCT, there are 18,327 non-injecting drug users in Kenya.
There's not much in terms of advocacy for understanding better the concept of harm reduction. People are more into talking about supporting people who are under influence of alcohol, and their option is rehabilitation.
There are existing policy gaps that hamper the campaign's efforts and make for a tense relationship with security officials.
There are some few punitive laws which are against what we are doing. Example is when the drug user is caught with this paraphernalia, where the drug user maybe has a needle or a syringe in his or her pocket, and then unfortunately he bumps into a police raid, he will be arrested.
As peer educators, we still have to deliver needles to addicts to prevent them from sharing, because there are those who still share needles when using drugs.
Even with the existing need, according to the 2018 Global State of Harm Reduction, nations enrolled to the program have fallen from 90 to 86 between 2016 and 2018. Global financing for the program has also stalled. Even in the face of long-standing controversy, strictly adhering to the parameters of the program at the Wellness Center has re-established family ties.
We have asked Janet to avoid the bad company. We offer her financial support to ensure that she is not tempted to use the wrong means to earn a living.
I don't know what I would have done if the methadone program would not have been introduced.
The reality that a fifth of the intravenous drug users worldwide have HIV and roughly half have tested positive for hepatitis C calls for renewed efforts to support infection prevention programs. Beryl Oro, CGTN, Kisumu, Kenya.
As Africa's art scene grows significantly, talent is springing out of all corners of the continent. In Cote d'Ivoire, Monu Desiree Kofi is making tables from using mobile phones. His pieces are trending on the West African nation. CGTN's Tudisha Balala has that story.
25-year-old Manu Desiree Kofi is an Ivorian artist. He's been creating art since 2016. With it, he wants to encourage the recycling of used mobile phones to raise awareness on electronic waste and preserving the environment.
Mobile phones are used to communicate and keep in touch with our loved ones. Why throw them away when they no longer work? We do not even pay attention to where they are thrown, whether they make the street dirty or fall into a gutter. It does not matter as long as we get rid of them before taking a new one. So, as I paint the scenes of life, I decided to use these used fonts and stick them onto characters so that everyone knows that protecting the environment is everyone's business.
Kofi uses keyboards and touchscreens of used phones to draw human silhouettes, life scenes and portraits.
This painting tells a street scene in Ajame, a community in Abidjan. Here, we have a diving view that describes the atmosphere during a holiday season in a bus station crowded with people and also garbage. We also see travelers jostling for a travel ticket. We used keyboards to differentiate the clothing colors to everything that can be found in this neighborhood as decor or atmosphere and others.
An art piece can take up to 4 weeks to create, using an average of 150 used phones. The young artist gets his supplies regularly from a black market trader in the largest flea market in Abidjan.
In the past, the phone keys were useless. We threw them in the garbage because we did not know what to do with them. But today, thanks to this young man, phones keyboards are used in art. So we take the opportunity to make some money. We hope that other components of used phones will be used for other things in future. It will be a good thing for our business.
In the past 2 years, Coffee has produced 100 works with 24,000 recycled mobile phones. The young Ivorian has already exhibited his work in several countries in Africa and Europe.
I intend to support organizations fighting for the well-being of children, and especially organizations that raise awareness in the area of safety and cleanliness. Very often, we organize activities with these children through photo shoots and hand washing. So, we want to create a center for training and education of children so that they could also learn art.
Thuli Shabalala, CGTN.
A quick look at your sports news and start off in Senegal, where the men's national under-20 football team has started training in earnest as they seek to better the fine run of the senior side at the AFCON by winning gold in the African Games. The 12th edition of the Games will run from the 19th to the 31st of August in Rabat, Morocco. CGTN's Susan Mwongeli has more.
It's at Toubab Dialaw, 40 kilometers from Dakar, the Senegalese capital, where the nation